and welcome to the Eureka Conservative Charlie Kirk, Bible Read and Bob Rant, where as often as possible, I'm not going to say every day anymore, as often as possible we get on here and we read an extract out of the Bible, and I have my rant about everything going on in the political and non-political issues of Australia and the world. But as usual, from me and where is he? He's getting on his couch there. Here's my co-star over there, JJ. We give you a look at the Melbourne landscape, and we'll just swing the old laptop around. And there she is, late Monday afternoon, evening, getting towards the twilight hour. Pretty clear, actually, for a winter's day. Very cold, but no sign of real rain, which is good. But it has been cold. Last night was pretty freezing. So, yeah, what you would expect, probably better actually than what you would expect from a Melbourne winter's day in the middle of June, coming into our coldest months, July and August. So I know the skiers aren't happy because there's not a lot of snow up on the hills at the moment. So cross fingers just for them. I'm not a skier. I have no intention of being. But for them, those who enjoy it, let's hope they get a bit of snow. If we're going to be this cold, we should be getting a bit of snow, but we're not. Anyway, a lot to talk about, so let's get through our Bible verse for today. I've given up on trying to catch up on the ones we missed. So we're up to the 22nd. What was it got? Might do one from June 20th. We'll do one from June 20th because I think this, I've only just had a quick look at it. I think it applies considering where the world is at the moment. Ephesians 6:10 through 20. The whole army of God. Paul had been chained up to a soldier, and here he pictures a soldier's defensive and offensive weapons for use in the spiritual battle. We're talking a lot about wars, conflicts, and battles, so pretty appropriate. Finally, build up your strength in union with the Lord and by means of his mighty power. Put on all the armour that God gives you so that you will be able to stand up against the devil's evil tricks. For we are not fighting against human beings, but against the wicked spiritual forces in the heavenly world. The rulers, authorities, and cosmic powers of this dark age. So put on God's armour now. Then when the evil day comes, you'll be able to resist the enemy's attacks. And after fighting to the end, you will still hold your ground. So stand ready with truth as a belt tight around your waist, and righteousness as your breastplate, and as your shoes the readiness to announce the good news of peace. At all times carry faith as a shield, for with it you will be able to put out all the burning arrows shot by the evil one, and accept salvation as a helmet, and the word of God as the sword which the Spirit gives you. Do all this in prayer, asking for God's help. Pray on every occasion as the Spirit leads. For this reason, keep alert and never give up. Pray always for all God's people, and pray also for me, that God will give me a message when I'm ready to speak, so that I may speak boldly and make known the gospel's secret. For the sake of this gospel, I am an ambassador, though now I am in prison. Pray that I may be bold in speaking about the gospel as I should. That was from June 20th. Today's one, very appropriate, I think, in today's world. June 22nd, another threat from Assyria. 2 Kings 19:14-19. The Assyrians were threatening the nation of Judah and mocking their trust in God. Hezekiah takes the matter to God. King Hezekiah took the letter from the messengers and read it. Then he went to the temple, placed the letter there in the presence of the Lord, and prayed. O Lord, the God of Israel, enthroned upon the winged creatures, you alone are God, ruling all the kingdoms of the world. You created the earth and the sky. Now, Lord, look at what is happening to us. Listen to all the things that Sennacherib is saying to insult you, the living God. We all know, Lord, that the emperors of Assyria have destroyed many nations, made their lands desolate, and burnt up their gods, which were no gods at all, only images of wood and stone made by human hands. Now, Lord our God, rescue us from the Syrians, so that all the nations of the world will know that only you, Lord, are God. Don't know how many thousands of years ago that was, but it shows you things haven't changed much, doesn't it? Israel and the Assyrians are still going at each other, and they're still appealing to their gods. So we're in a strange world. We're in it was funny. I said this on my last live stream after listening to Pauline Hanson at the National Press Club, and she was absolutely brilliant. I couldn't have been more ecstatic for where we're going as a country. And then the next day, Trump and bloody his idiot mate J.D. Vance signed that MOU with Iran, and I don't know, the world just doesn't make sense anymore. They've done a complete 180 on so many things. For the first time, and I'll get to this in a minute, I want to get on to Pauline and the others first, but for the first time, I've lost faith in Trump. Since 2016, I backed Trump from the day he went down the escalators. I knew he was going to win that presidential election because people like with Hanson are looking for something different from the majors. Over there, it's the Republicans and Democrats. Trump presented them with something different. And I've been arguing this one for so long, longer than any of the groypers when they were just little babes in diapers, all this sort of thing. I'm not a huge believer in the minor parties because they're not looking to win government. If you want to change the country, you've got to win government. You've got to be able to put through legislation, and you've got to be able to change things, just not hold the balance of power. You've got to win government, and you've got to win the Senate. You should be aiming for that as a minimum. So finally, we have a party that's emerged that challenges the uniparty, if that's what you want to call it. I've never believed a lot in that term. I just like the major parties probably better. And the Liberals, over a decade or longer, have committed political suicide. There is I can't see a road back. Certainly not the next election. They're going to have to probably spend 10, 15 years, I think, in the political wilderness and latch on as a minor party to One Nation, hopefully, because we don't get One Nation up next election. There's not going to be a centre-right party that can win government for probably 20 years. So Pauline Hanson was brilliant last Wednesday at the National Press Club, and it should have seen every single centre-right person start swinging behind One Nation. As I said on Ben's space, his ex-space, Australian Talks, if not now, when? This is our chance. We've been waiting for a chance to send a major signal to both the Labor and LNP parties that what they're serving up is not good enough. But we've been waiting for this chance. And unfortunately, I think the same old centre-right, not the left, the centre, supposedly centre-right Australian First mob are going to look to sabotage Hanson. And it does make me question whether these people are really, truly Australian First. Because how can you be Australian First and do everything to sabotage the only thing that can put Albo out of government? Doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree with Hanson on everything. I won't. I won't agree, and Trump's proved that. I won't agree with any politician. I won't take any politician verbatim as being the golden child. We've got to hold their feet to the fire, whoever it is. And you've got to keep lobbying, keep politicising. We as a public, I'm talking about, if we want our country back to where it was, it does rely on us, but we do need to swing behind the politicians and the parties that give us the best chance of doing that. Right now, there's only one party that gives us that chance. That's One Nation. You don't have to love them, but you do have to love them more than you love the ALP, and you do have to swing behind them and give them your vote. If you want to change this country and you're centre-right, whether you're middle, whether you're, I'll say it, far right, if you want to get rid of the Marxists and the socialists, this is your chance. And if you're not going to do it now, when? If we don't swing behind One Nation and get them into government or get them into a coalition of government, when's the next chance we're going to get? If it doesn't happen in 28, I don't know that you get another chance. Because momentum in politics, like in sport, like in life, lasts only so long. And all the momentum's with One Nation. But all the forces are coming out to get stuck into them. Albo's petrified. Burke's petrified. Bowen's petrified. The Greens today spent hours just attacking them in the Senate. So parts of the media will now come out, start attacking them. Get Up is starting to attack them. The Liberals stupidly had to go at Pauline Hanson about monoculture when that's what the vast bulk of Australians want. The Liberal Party still don't get it. They're still pushing the multicultural line. Pauline Hanson at the National Press Club said we're a multi-racial country. She embraced people from other races, other countries, but she said we need to be a monoculture society. Sorry, we're a multiracial society, but we need to be a monocultural country. Absolutely perfect. Multiculturalism has caused nearly all our problems. People come in here and they don't embed themselves in an Australian culture. They keep their culture, they keep their way of life, and then they want to replace our way of life with theirs. And now if you dare say you want the Australian culture, the Australian rate of life, you're painted a racist and a bigot. And you just see them all coming out with their saying. I mean, the ALP of all parties is trying to tell us that One Nation is a party of the billionaires, not the battlers. I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, what are the rivers of gold that the ALP has been getting from the trade unions or the Pratt family or people like Fortescue? You know, you look at their donors. They include the top end of town giving the ALP millions of dollars. So don't tell me the ALP aren't for the millionaires and billionaires. They've got all the big corporate banks, corporations, legal firms. They're all donors and not little donors, you know, in the hundreds of thousands at least. So the hypocrisy coming from the ALP, who don't have any standards, they'll keep using this hypocrisy to try and belittle One Nation and paint everybody who supports them as the racist. And they're going to try and do what they always do, divide the centre-right. But the problem isn't so much the ALP. The problem is people like Jared Rennick. Jared Rennick has come out with the old tide lines and has accused Pauline Hanson of being a Zionist shill because she supports Jewish people. You can't do that with Jared Rennick. I mean, I have my issues and my favourites in all sorts of cultures. I've got good Jewish friends. I've got Jewish people I can't stand. I've had good Islamic people I've worked with. I actually haven't had that many issues except with the radicals are never going to come with me. They're not going to let their kids associate with someone like me. So I'm probably never going to cross them. But if I did cross them, I'm pretty sure I'd have a few enemies on the Islamic side. On the Christian side, the people who've done me more harm than anything has been white Anglo-Christians, or I should say Christians, Timu Christians. They say they're Christians, but they act anything but it. But they're the biggest arseholes I've probably met. But I've also had some outstanding Christian friends, been raised in a great Catholic family. But also I don't know a lot of bad Catholics, but I see them, Candace Owens, Joe Biden, Anthony Albanese, all claiming to be Catholic, and they're the furthest thing from it. So, we've now got Jared Rennick attacking, and he does this all the time. And I used to be it's like, actually, I'm getting a track record of this, and I think it's just politics generally. I used to be a big supporter of Jared Rennick, or at least valued his opinion. But now he's got his nose out of joint, and anyone who threatens his People First party, if they're now merged with a party that, it seems to be aligned with the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. Anybody who challenges his party or his pathway back into Parliament, he's going to attack. Jared Rennick, let's be honest, Jared Rennick was part of the problem. He was part of the Uniparty. He was a Liberal senator who lost his spot in the Parliament because he lost his spot on the ticket. And he lost his spot on the ticket. He'd still be part of that Uniparty system. He'd still be a Liberal senator sitting in the Senate, sucking on all the gravy train. But now that he's not part of it, he's formed his own party and he's accusing his former colleagues, which, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Just because you didn't get what you want, you're tearing down your old party and all your old colleagues and you're having a crack at them. I mean, is that the sort of person you would want in your work or you would want in your sports team or anything like that? Person that gets their nose out of joint against the coach or the selectors and then tries to tear down the whole team. He could have stayed part of that team and come back like others have done, but he didn't do that. Fair enough, that's his choice. But let's not bullshit anyone. Had he not lost his spot on the ticket, he'd still be part of the Liberal Party. He'd still be in the Senate, and he'd still be towing the Liberal Party line. But now that he's out of the party, all of a sudden they're all demons. Are they demons because he doesn't or doesn't support them? He would if he was part of the party. Or are they demons because they've denied him the gravy train? Now he's trying to get back in. One Nation's in the way. So now he's back on there. People are imploring him to join One Nation. I hope he never does. I hope they're smart enough to keep him arm's length because I do think he's an anti-Semite. I mean, you can see the anti-Semites, and the anti-Semites are funny people. You know, they're clearly anti-Semites, but when you accuse them of it, they don't, oh, no, I'm not an anti-Semite. Why do they not want to wear that badge? You know, I'm anti-radical Islam. Wear that badge happily. No problem whatsoever. I'm anti-left. Yes. I'm not a big fan of the Islamic faith. If that makes me a bigot, I'm a bigot. Wear the badge. I'm pro-Christianity. I'm pro-Western civilization. I'm pro-democracy. I'm pro-capitalism. Wear the badge. But when a person is an anti-Semite, and look, you can tell when they hate Jewish people, just admit you hate them. You know, that's all you got to do. As a Catholic, we're taught to try and love everybody. So I don't hate a lot of people. I do hate a lot of cultures, and the way I hate the IRGC for the way they treat their own citizens. We'll come on to that in a minute. I hate the radical Islams in Nigeria who are just slaughtering and murdering people in the most vile way because they're not Islamic and they won't convert to Islam. What? So if I want to have my faith, I lose my life, lose my head. I hate people who attack people over nothing, simply because of a disagreement over politics or faith or whatever. They can't debate emotionally with some maturity about their disagreements. And you might never ever come to there, but you have that debate, and then you'll have your people and their people, all that sort of thing. But I don't, while I dislike certain cultures, I don't wish harm on them until they wish harm on us. And then gloves are off. Again, we'll get to that soon. So, you know, Jared Rennick, he's an anti-Semite. It's as clear as day. He comes down on the woke right side, the anti-Semite. Every time there's a debate on it, he starts blabbing on about Zionism, and you've only got to wear the Israeli flag and you're a Zionist. Now, the basic thing about Zionism is you believe the Jewish people have a right to their homeland. And the Jewish people have an historic right, just like the indigenous people in Australia have, to call Israel their homeland. It goes back thousands of years, just like with the indigenous people here. But is Jared Rennick, and I don't necessarily think anyone has any right to any land. I mean, we have conflicts for a reason. If you can't defend it, you're going to lose it. That's the historical reality from human existence. If you are not strong enough to defend your land, you'll lose it. That's why the Israelis did lose their land because of the Roman Empire. They've learnt their lesson. And despite different dictatorships, empires, countries wanting to destroy them, they've stood the test of time, and they're back in their homelands with one of the strongest militaries on the planet that can defend their homeland. They've learnt their lesson. Australians haven't. Have we got a military that could defend our homeland? No. But Jared Rennick, he's just consumed that Pauline Hanson's doing better than him, so he's got to attack her as a Zionist. You know, and then put all these conspiracy theories. He's like Senator Babette. You can see him a mile off. They don't want to wear it, but they're not only Zionists. They won't like this. They're also racist. All right. Now, again, I don't care about the color of your skin. I don't care about where you've come from. What I do care about that you embed yourself in Australia, in our values, in our culture. If you're running around with a machete, if you're protesting about other countries' issues that don't bother us, if you're setting fires to tobacco shops, if you're raping people, if you're doing all that because that you defend that because of your culture, which is happening in our courts and getting people lesser sentence, if you think it's okay to, like in England, to put a man down on the thing and try and behead him in front of the world by social media, all those sorts of shit, then you're not part of our culture. Go. Leave. That's what we should be telling them. But we get them into our courts and our magistrates go, oh, well, I'll take into consideration the way you've been raised and the country you've been raised. And instead of sending you to prison, I'll give you bail. But you've got to be a well-behaved boy from here. And then the next week they're attacking some poor bastard because they should have been put away. And then the same story goes up at the next hearing. It's interesting. You should Google how many magistrates we have, for example, in Victoria. It's not a lot. It's about 220. So magistrates, judges, all that sort of thing in the various courts. It's not a huge amount. And they're appointed, most of them, for life. So it's very hard to get into the bar, when you're coming out of university doing all that. So you've got to go through university, and then you've got to go through the indoctrination of university that teaches these people who end up on our benches that white Anglo heterosexual men are basically bad. And if you're an immigrant, refugee, or whatever, you're good, and the court system will favour you. Two-tier justice system. So, Rennick is more consumed with Zionism than fixing all those issues. He's more consumed with getting back into the Senate than swinging behind someone and maybe even joining them and putting his biases and bigotry aside so we can change this country for the better. So watch out for the false prophets. Senator Bepp, Jared Rennick, two of them. They will swing by and attack One Nation and attack Paula Hanson over these next 2 years. Don't fall for their bullshit, because it's bullshit. You don't have to be all in on One Nation. You have to be all in on getting rid of the ALP. One Nation is our greatest opportunity in a generation to do it. And I hope there's enough Australians that are waking up to that. It seems that way. They're going to obliterate the Liberal Party, and I hope they're going to do enough damage to the ALP that they not only defeat them, but they keep them out of government for about 2 decades. By which time my time on this planet will probably up, and it'll be the next generation. At least I can see off the Marxist revolution that's been going on in this country now for too long. That's Australia. Internationally, America and this MOU with Iran. Where do we start? One thing you learn, the more experience you get in life, the more you get let down by people you trust. So, for example, in America, I used to be a big fan of Candace Owens. She used to talk all the stuff that I wanted to hear. Now, she is totally changed. Totally changed. And she's now basically a radical, worse than a leftist. She's a Catholic who supports any opposition to Israel, which include radical Islamic countries who want to tear down Catholicism. Try and make sense of that, if you will. Tucker Carlson, I consider evil. And I was a massive fan of Tucker Carlson. When he broke away from Fox News, I thought that was great. He was free to speak his mind. Sadly, I think at Fox News, they probably reined him in and kept him under control. He's gone from a person who I used to just take in all his podcasts, and his initial podcasts were really good. But now he just wakes up every day and it's, how can I criticize Israel? How can I attack the Jews? How can I attack anyone who supports them, whether it's Trump or whatever? How can I promote the woke right? And he just has the same old, regurgitates the same old guest, one after the other. And they all share the same mindless bloody brain rot about anti-Israel and Zionism, and it's just, one, boring, two, evil, and he's creating a movement in the USA which could seize control of the White House if things go their way. Politician, I used to be a big fan of George Bush. Then he lied to us about weapons of mass destruction. So, one after the other, people you trusted let you down. People you trusted let you down. Goes on and on. Megyn Kelly, another one who I used to like. She's gone the same way as Candace and Tucker. And it just makes you think. But the one constant we always had was Trump. From 2015 until just recently, I thought Trump was the person I could trust in politics. He had a combative style. I understand why people didn't like him. He had a lot of narcissism, which you forgave because you felt he was a true conservative trying to get America and, more importantly, the West back. But as a conservative, there's some things you can accept and there's some things you can't. And while I was a big supporter of Trump, I always was nervous that someday he might flip. And I think last week, I think he's been convinced to flip. I don't think he decided to flip. I think he's had the woke right through JD Vance. So JD Vance was put in that position by the encouragement of Tucker Carlson. JD Vance employed Tucker Carlson's son. JD Vance has said he's a good friend of Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson says he's a good friend of JD Vance. No doubt Tucker Carlson would leverage that. He's been banned from the White House, but he would talk to JD Vance, who would then talk to Trump. I closed my eyes last week. I was listening to JD Vance and Trump, and what I heard was Tucker Carlson. If that had been, if you put the words that Trump and JD Vance said and Tucker Carlson said them in a podcast, it's that Tucker Carlson. That MOU is a capitulation to Iran. And everyone goes, oh, you're a Zionist. Well, it's actually not that's not the state of Israel I'm concerned about. It's not the Jewish people in Israel I'm concerned about. They have the weaponry to defend themselves. I'll tell you what pisses me off the most. And I'm a very loyal person. If you're my friend, I will stand by you. I've lost businesses because I've stood by friends. It's something I've been raised with. I've lost a lot of friends because I take certain stands to stand by friends. And then when you do that, you find out who your real friends are. And there's not a lot of real friends you get in this life, because you'll know who your real friends are when you need them and they don't stand by you. And much to my chagrin and disappointment, even devastation, you lose those friends. And in some way, a person like Trump, who you've been following and supporting all these years, becomes, even though you don't know them, they do become your friend via social media news and whatever, and you're cheering them on the whole time. When he took on Iran, I thought, brilliant. Someone had to take these bastards on. And when you take on a regime like Iran, you don't have to just take them on. You have to defeat them entirely. The lesson we were given was way back in World War II, when the Allies decimated Nazi Germany and Japan, to the point they had to unconditionally surrender. Unconditionally. That means there was no terms, no whatever. You just surrendered. And then the Allies took over the governing of the countries, and then they rebuilt them to the point things changed, and they could change the culture, the ideology, and the way they think. And now you look where Germany and Japan are today. In Iraq, they didn't fight until there was an unconditional surrender. In Afghanistan, they didn't even get that far. In Iran, no boots on the ground. If you're going to fight a war, you've got to have boots on the ground. So if you're going to start shit, end it properly. I actually think Trump could have won this without putting boots on the ground, maybe Carg Island. But he started this shit, and he didn't start it with airstrikes. He started this by encouraging Iranian civilians to stand up against their government, to take to the streets. And they did in the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, we'll never know. But from all reports, over 45,000 Iranian civilians were slaughtered in 2 days by their own government, their own forces. They were just riding motorbikes in the street, shooting people in the street. Now, unless you lived under a rock, we all saw that. It was, we saw it via social media. And that's with internet restrictions. Imagine what would have happened if we were able to see all of it. They're hanging the best of the best in the young generations for daring to oppose their government. Just imagine that for a minute in Australia. Elbows in government, and if you and me opposed him and said things on social media that they didn't like, we'd face the death penalty for just opposing your prime minister or government. That's what they were doing and are doing in Iran. Trump encouraged that. Trump told them if they rise up, he will make the IRG regret rising up, and he will send them back into the Stone Age and help them get up. There's tweet after tweet about how he encouraged the Iranian people to rise up, and they did. They showed a lot of courage with no weaponry, took to the streets and got slaughtered. Then he told them to get back in your houses, and they will devastate Iran so much, he will let them know at the right time when to come out and take their government back. And last week he threw them under the bus. So I got issues with the way through Israel on the bus, and the way especially, here's the other issue. If you go into battle with an ally, they're shoulder to shoulder. Doesn't matter what you think about Israel. So, for example, if China invade Taiwan and we get involved, and strategically there would be reasons for us to get involved because we do not want China and Taiwan on our doorstep emboldened about what else they could take over. If China invade Taiwan and win, which is highly likely, they will be emboldened to look elsewhere as well. So we either bloody their nose there or we'll try to bloody their nose here. Will America stand by us? Well, going by what Trump and J.D. Vance have said about Israel, probably not. If it's going to affect oil prices in the stock market and they're not going to, that might have cost them the midterms, well, they'll bail on you and throw you under the bus. That's exactly what they've done to Israel. Trump claimed that he killed the Ayatollah. No, he didn't. The Israel Air Force did that. The Israeli intelligence agencies did that. Go back to what Marco Rubio said. The Israelis said, we're going, whether you're going or not. They had a chance to wipe out the entire heads of the Iranian regime, and they took it. And at that point, Trump and the US said, well, if you're in, we're going. So they both went. They devastated Iran. They had them on their knees, and then Trump held back. He did what Bush did. He did what Obama did in Afghanistan. You've got an enemy on the knees. History tells you. Look at the Roman Empire. Look what the Allies did in World War II. You don't take the foot off the throat. You pulverize them until they say, we want to surrender. Unconditional. We're out. We've had enough. Trump didn't do that. He had ceasefire after ceasefire. He was worried about the midterms. Instead of winning the war, he wanted to win the midterms. Whereas had he won the war, he would have won the midterms. He sat so long on his hands, and that started to make me nervous. And then they signed this MOU. And now Iran is emboldened. Their networks are saying, treating this as a win, as they should. They haven't been kicked out of power. They still have influence. They still control, or not control, at least intimidate ships from going through the Strait of Hormuz. So our oil supplies have not been secured, and I don't see them being secured anytime soon. They've emboldened Iran. Iran think they can take on the US and survive. Trump has kicked this can, like every other president has done, down the road for the next 2 or 3 generations to deal with. The only way he can get out of it is by doing another 180, and there's some sounds today he may contemplate that and just blow the shit out of Iran. He should have taken out their infrastructure. I know why I understood the reasoning why he didn't, but you're in a war. There's no reasoning in a war. Once you start a war, you go to win. He should have taken it out of their power plants. He should have taken out their oil refineries. He should have taken out their bridges. He should have put them on their knees even further until they were begging for him to stop. He didn't do that. And now, because the midterms, one can only assume, because the midterms are closer, he's done a 180. Don't know what the other reasons are, but whatever it is, it's not good enough. The people he gave his word to, the Iranian citizens, he's thrown under the bus. He's disgraced the 45,000 souls that gave their lives for some freedom in their country. That's not the Western civilization that I was brought up to believe in. And now Trump is no better than George Bush, Obama, Biden. Well, he's a better president. I want to believe in him. But how do you? And then you listen. Today, it was like rubbing salt in the wound. Seeing J.D. Vance in a meeting with Pakistan, Qatar, and Iran, 3 of the worst Islamic countries with some of the worst human rights violations you can ever imagine. The way they treat their women, their children, innocents. Don't forget, Pakistan hid Osama bin Laden. They've got Imran Khan, a democratically elected prime minister, a great sportsman who played cricket at an unbelievable level against Australia. He's sitting, rotting away in a jail on ridiculous charges. They did to Imran Khan what the Democrats wanted to do to Donald Trump. And yet here they are mediating peace talks. Qatar, all the woke right want to attack Israel and their lobby groups, AIPAC and America, for the way they fund politicians. Let's not bullshit. Everyone does it. There was a chart the other day. Israel is in the lobby groups, but it's the 10th in line. Qatar is pouring billions of their dollars from their oil profits into American universities, American politicians, and American influencers via the podcast, such as Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson goes over to Qatar and hosts their big, events, wants to buy property in Qatar, promotes them every day of the week, as does Candace Owens, as does that fat prick Sim Uchak, as does Anna Kasparian, who's an evil bitch, as does Candace Owens, as does all of them. Don't tell me they're not getting Qatar money. And then, of course, you've got Iran. You couldn't have three less trustworthy countries to be negotiating with. And here's J.D. Vance trying to convince us that they're willing participants in peace talks. Absolute nonsense. As he's saying that, Iran's giving instructions for Hezbollah to attack Israeli troops and civilians. I mean, if you've been alive long enough like I have, you cannot negotiate with these people like this. And you cannot throw people who put their trust in you and fought alongside you, risked their lives alongside you like the Iranian civilians did. And forget what you think about Netanyahu. The Israeli military fought alongside the Americans. I think the American military would be aghast at the way Trump and Vance have spoken to the Israeli government and who work hand in hand with the Israeli military. I mean, one doesn't work without the other. And Netanyahu looks like holding his line. And look, good on him. He's got his detractors. But if you were in Netanyahu's shoes, you were Prime Minister of Australia, and you had countries on several fronts trying to destroy Australia and annihilated civilian population, which is what those Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, Syria, even a whole bunch of terrorist groups and countries would love to do to Israel. God, I hope we had a Prime Minister like Netanyahu who would defend us. And they're throwing them under the bus. There's just certain things you can't walk past. The old saying, the standard you walk past is the standard you will not accept or accept whatever. I can't walk past this one from Trump. Just can't do it. You put as a person who's got no hope, you've got to put your hope in certain people in politics. And in America, my hope now is with Marco Rubio. I can't see anybody. I had so much hope for Trump and his presidency. I think he's a lame duck president now. I don't see any way out of this. In the midterms, he's going to lose, and he's going to lose big. He's got people on both sides of the aisle. He's lost his MAGA base. He just with this MOU alone, we all see it. I'm Australian, but I'm behind Trump because, like every MAGA person's behind Trump. Trump has sold out to the woke right, to the Tucker Carlson class. He's ignored his MAGA base, which is totally different to the woke right. So right now he's got the Democrats against him, he's got the woke right against him, and he's got MAGA turning against him. Not only will he lose the midterms, once he's lost the midterms, he'll be impeached. I'll guarantee you that's where this is going. And when he's impeached, who becomes president? The vice president, J.D. Vance. Tucker Carlson will be in the White House. He might not be president, but he'll be the one pulling the strings. And everyone who's been bitching about the Israeli lobby group, you'll have the Tucker Carlson lobby group fed by Qatar, pulling the strings in the White House. If you think things aren't serious now, wait till that happens. Wait till that happens, because then the world's in all sorts of shit. And he will have the president's position in the White House for 2 years, and God knows what they'll do to keep power then. So what I believe we're heading into some very, very dark times, really dark times. So everyone was worried about what's going on in the UK. Just wait till you've got an Islamic-influenced White House in charge of the greatest military on the planet. Ben said from what's talked now that America's heading to civil war. I'd always hoped that wouldn't be the case. If some events turn out as I fear, I think that civil war is inevitable, because at least 50% of Americans aren't going to cop an Islamic-influenced White House, especially when it's taken in what will effectively be a coup d'etat if they impeach Trump. So we're in for a crazy 2 years. In Australia, we're looking at one nation taking government. In England, we're looking at the Labor Party getting kicked out by Restore Reform, or a coalition of Restore Reform and the Conservatives. We've had Meloni in Italy done a 180. She's now with the European Union. So we've got, when people thought we're starting to win these battles, we're not. The battle just goes on, and people are going to let you down. And you're going to have to put hope in others. And hopefully we get to a position where we get enough people we can really put our trust in. I thought Trump was that person. I don't know whether they've got something over him. He's talking a totally different language to the Trump I've been supporting now for a decade. It's like watching a different man. And I can't support the Trump I'm seeing. So whether they've got someone replace him, or whether they've got something from the Epstein findings that they're threatening to publish on him, or whether they've got something on him, I don't know. Or whether he's just let the woke right get in his ear. I have no idea. But we're in for some, we're actually got some light at the end of the tunnel in Australia. But in America, and look, we've got to cut our apron strings from America. My final point, and I'll go into this more tomorrow on the Conservative podcast tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, is we've got to stand alone in Australia. We've now got 27, 28 million. Some people are against that. Well, maybe we need to put a certain amount, I'd say 5% of GDP into our military at least. And of all countries we need to imitate, it needs to be Israel. We need to get a nuclear capability into our defence force. We need to get a modern mobile army like Israel has. And we need to be able to fight wars on several fronts by ourselves. Now, Israel has weapons they get from everywhere else, but their soldiers, their military, are the ones that do their fighting. And we have to give serious consideration, like Israel does, for a bit of national service at 18. Every Israeli kid has to go into the military and fight some battles. I think Australia is at the point. We cannot rely on the Americans anymore. The Americans have thrown their allies under the bus. Trump has proved that he threw the allies under the bus. We can't trust the Yanks. Can't trust Trump. Can't trust J.D. Vance. And even if we think we should be able to trust them, we still shouldn't trust them. The only way to look after yourself is to teach yourself how to fight. Because the first people that will abandon you in a fight is the people you trust the most. Life has taught me that. And it has taught me not to trust anyone emphatically unless they're family. And even sometimes family let you down. So the only person you can really trust is yourself. The only people Australia can trust is ourselves. We've got to be able to stand on our 2 feet and not put our trust in another entity like Australia. So on that part, I'm wholeheartedly Australia first, but for different reasons for a lot of these other people that say they're Australia first, but then, they're citizens of another country. Or they go take trips overseas. Or they go, buy overseas. You're either Australia first or you're not. Don't say you're Australia first if you're only Australia first on a few things. So anyway, that's my rant. Pretty good rant. So from me, my boy, here he comes. This dog's Australia first. Aren't you, baby? Yeah. Dogs you can trust. I love my dogs. They will be loyal to you, won't you, mate? Hey? This one's as loyal as you can get. So from me, JJ, God bless you. God bless your kids. God bless your grandkids. God bless your pets. God bless this country, because we're going to need it. And let's get behind one nation. Like I said, whether you agree. If not now, when? We get behind one nation and we save that flag in this country. All right, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow night. 8 o'clock on the podcast. Hopefully I can get a guest or two. I'm going to be trying tonight and tomorrow to try and get a couple on board with me. We'll see how we go. All right, everyone. Good night. Good evening. Good night. See ya.